What do you think you're doing? Hi. Are you joining me for today's video? Hey guys, Zephyr here. Luna joining me. So excuse the noise. She'll get down when she's ready. I got distracted by the cute cat. What did I want to do? I wanted to talk about Neon Gods by Katee Robert. I'll put up a picture of the cover art. It's very nice, and I wanted to go ahead and talk about it because I am a sucker for mythology retellings, specifically ones about Hades and Persephone. I heard about this book. Don't get distracted by the cute cat. I heard about this book in the way that I've heard about a lot of books I've been reading recently through different booktubers. And so I borrowed it from the library and I read it, and it was a lot of fun. But there are a few things I wanted to talk about because it started getting me thinking. For one, this story I would actually describe more as like a light mafia romance story. And when I say light, I mean like light. Because with mafia romance stories, things can get kind of intense between the main characters, and the relationship is a bit darker. And this is coming from someone who hasn't really read a lot of mafia romance stories, just one or two, and it's been a while since then. So for those who actually have experience with that kind of thing, you can correct me. Please do so. But I really do feel like the author was going a bit for a tame mafia romance story, but with, some mythology kind of painted on. Specifically, just the names of the different Greek gods. It's interesting because basically, Neon Gods is about Hades and Persephone and based off of that myth. But I don't want to give too much away. But this does happen like right in the beginning of the story, so I don't think this is much of a spoiler. Persephone is basically running away from an engagement with Zeus that her mother Demeter set up. And she runs right to the underworld to escape it, and she makes a bargain with Hades to get away from Zeus and to also get back at him. And they start having sex, and that's how they get back at him for some reason. Anyway, whatever. So I guess you could call that modern. I don't know. What got me thinking and wanting to make a video about this book is the setup for the story is actually really interesting. Like, this is a common thing in romance books, especially when the author wants to make a series out of it. Persephone has sisters. She's got Eurydice as Eurydice. I'm very bad at pronouncing names sometimes, so sorry if that's not the right way. But Eurydice and Orpheus is Eurydice is the younger sister, and she's got Psyche as an older sister, and then she's got one more older sister who was in the myth about Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. What is the name for that person? I don't remember. We're going to put it up on the screen. There you go. Thank you, future editing self. But so that's a big difference, because in the original mythology, Persephone is Demeter's only daughter, and that was part of the story. That's why Demeter was very protective of Persephone. It's her only child. And it got changed in the story, and I don't know how to feel about that. But we're not going to get into it because then I'm going to start ranting about mythology, and that's not important right now. Anyway, it makes for some interesting dynamics later down the line. There's also the aspect of you've got these characters who have the names of the Greek gods, but they're not necessarily Greek gods. And yet the world has magic. And some of these people have like abilities technically. So like Hermes in original mythology is the god of travel and thieves, travelers and thieves. Well, in this story, Hermes, she, is the messenger god, and she can also get into any place that she wants to, which is interesting. But it also brings up the question of, okay, well, if she has this ability and it's kind of implied that it's a bit more magical than actually, human, what about the other gods and goddesses? You know, Demeter has domain over the food supply, but is there something special that she does? Snaps her fingers and she gets more food? Like, the more I read the book, the more questions I had, and the more interested I became in the background and wanting to know more about the world. I wanted more world building in the story. And instead, I got kind of lackluster sex scenes between Hades and Persephone. Which, yes, that is a little bit of a criticism. But it's also really funny when you think about it, because in this book, one of the things that I kept trying not to laugh at was the fact that Hades kept saying, "Oh, Persephone, I'm a dark person, and my sexual proclivities, they're dark. They're going to be too much for you. You're not going to be able to take it." And it turns out to be light beat ASM and some voyeurism, and that's about it. And like, thank God she's into it. Otherwise, we would have had to actually sit down and maybe have a semi-sexy conversation about limitations and what we're into and all that other stuff. Okay. Maybe this is more criticism than I expected to have for this. Look, I am not an expert on romance stories, and I will be the first to tell you this. But if you have a character who is constantly talking about how dark he is and how his what's the word for it? His sexual tastes are a bit more than normal, then I want you to have more than just a little bit of spanking and voyeurism, okay? You can't have this buildup with this character and then not have any kind of payoff. Like, otherwise, you're going to have people who will read darker stuff or who have more experience with this genre reading the book, and they're like going through the pages, like, where's the build? You've got the build up, but where's the actual payoff of what you're talking about? I think the thing that got me interested in talking about this book is it's another one where I felt like there was a lot of opportunity. I feel like there was a lot of promise with this book. It really could have gone to the well and really expanded on this world where you have these people who are put into these roles, and some of them have the implication of magic abilities, and there is magic in this world because there's a barrier between Olympus in the underworld section and between, Olympus and the outside world, because for some reason there is a California. I don't know. There was so much potential with this book and with the relationship, and you could have built up a lot of stuff, and it's kind of disappointing to find that it was wasted potential. And you can't really use the excuse of, well, it's a romance, because one, that is offensive to the romance genre. There are plenty of romance books that are complicated and have complex relationships. Hello. And two, that's just such a bad excuse. You know? Don't you think so, Luna? Come here. I want to look like a villain while I do this. This video is basically kind of half review and half story workshop. Mostly lamenting about this book because I enjoyed this book. And I enjoy the Hades Persephone myth. I thought the writing was very good. I liked the banter between the main characters. And I was interested in the world. And that's basically my whole advice for the story workshop is more world building, please. Because I feel if that had happened and we went more to the well and discovered what is Persephone's role or what it's going to be in the future, that could have been really interesting, and you could have used that to expand on the relationship between Hades and Persephone. So in the book it mentions how there's Zeus in the role of Hera and how it's been downgraded over the years. Like, what about Hades' role and the role of Persephone? Like, obviously it's not a thing in this world, but why would you have one and not the other, I guess, is my question. This establishment of Zeus and Hades being basically foils of each other. Like, why wouldn't you establish that Hades, the role, not the person, but the Hades role also has a queen role, and like maybe you could have expanded on that, and you could have had the actual character Persephone named Kor, because that's the original mythological name for her to begin with, and then she becomes Persephone after she marries Hades. Look. You basically heard most of my thought process before I turned on the camera, and this led me to the thought that retellings can either be good or bad, but a lot of authors have issues with making them great, because retellings, whether it's about Peter Pan, mythology, or what have you, are basically professional fan fiction. And yes, I do say that with my whole chest. I believe this wholeheartedly. Retellings are just official fan fictions that people get paid for. And that's why you have this issue with them, where authors don't really expand on the story, even though they have plenty of opportunity to. They just stick with the caricatures or foils that have already been set up in the original stories, and they just add some sprinklings of modern stuff. And now here we are, having a fun time, but also slightly disappointed overall. Wrap up time. The too long didn't watch of this is basically, I recommend the book if you like mythology, and especially if you like the Hades and Persephone myth. I had a lot of fun with it. I am definitely going to read the next book, which is going to be interesting because it's going to be the Psyche Eros myth, And Eros is basically an assassin for Aphrodite, and Aphrodite put out a hit on Psyche. So yes, I'm absolutely going to read it, and it's going to be interesting. I do think, however, that you kind of have to disengage a part of your brain if you're really into mythology and you know the mythos. Kind of like when you engage with a lot of other mythology retellings. I keep running into this problem. It's interesting. But anyway, all that being said, thank you for watching. It is now time to go on to the next adventure. Bye bye.